Hello everyone and welcome back to the League of Legends Collegiate Championship presented by State Farm. We're diving into our last match, set of matches at least, for the round of 16 to see who can make it into that top 8. And the Shepherd, me, and everyone else listening to this broadcast through these matches. We've got our two lovely analysts, Dylan MLBD Kleinven and Sean OPTSM fan Shannon. I love the fact you guys are rocking those floral shirts as well. Looking good. Celebrate some Mother's Day. But
thank you.
Guys, I want to hop straight into the bracket here. And if anyone missed out on the early set of games, well, spoiler alert, but Harrisburg Storm were able to cruise to a 2-0 victory over their opponents in George Mason University. And over on twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports, we were over there. Bethany actually got the 2-0 against University of Western Ontario. A bit of a surprise to me. Special guest, Sean, what do you think of what we saw earlier?
Yeah, I think we saw like really great gameplay, as we were talking about earlier, from Harrisburg. And kind of as I was saying to some people behind the scene, is that I felt like that Western Bethany game could have gone either way, but I did not expect it to be a 2-0 either way, especially in the quality of wins that Bethany had over University of Western, one of our tournament favorites here in the May Madness that we got, May Mayhem that we have going on.
I love how you've self-branded this May Mayhem just to try and rival March Madness. It's I appreciate all the traditional sports references that we can get. That said, we do not only have games going on for twitch.tv/academy. We've mentioned twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports. There is another match going over on that stream, and it should be a good one, as Arizona State will be taking on the Columbia Cougars. Columbia, another very storied varsity program that we have in the North Conference, and that has seen the top 8 many times before. Even Evan RL playing in this match for Maryville, going up against the Coog Esports. Evan, an alumni of Columbia too. I believe Clyde as well, who we saw earlier. So yeah, a lot of stories there. But if you want to catch that match, head on over to our friends at twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports. But getting back into what we have in front of us, gents, we have a good one, as Maryville University will be taking on Coog Esports. And I want to dive straight into Coog Esports, as it's the team that I think most of the viewers may not be as familiar with. And OP, I want your diagnosis of this team going into this match. What do they have to do to walk into the round of 8 going up against Maryville University?
I mean, it's not a task that I think any team's want, is to play against the powerhouse that is Maryville. But for Coog Esports here, coming out of the South Conference, you talk to anybody in the South, they did, end up, going all the way through to that final match against Winthrop. But these guys do not play your traditional League of Legends, and I think that's going to bode well for them here. As we were talking about earlier in the previous match, you can't just go blow for blow with some of these teams. You have to throw curveballs at them. And Coog Esports, they're taking a page out of the Houston Astros down there. They're throwing all the different kind of curveballs that they possibly can, whether it be different champion picks or just the way that they approach the game. People will talk about C champion, kill champion, and the likes of like probably a LPL or a Vietnamese team that you're maybe more used to seeing on the big stage. Coog Esports, they're chaotic. They in controlled chaos, if you will, for themselves. But if you're watching some of their games, you probably are thinking of that I'm a cutie pie quote of, if they don't know what we're doing, if we don't know what we're doing, how can the enemy team know what we're doing?
Yeah, and kind of bouncing off that, talking about some of these champion picks, it feels like this team is more kind of they're an X factor compared to some of these other teams, because their mid laner Soxo, he is very high rated on the ladder, currently over 800 LP in Challenger, and he is an Anivia Talia player. Those are champions that are not commonly seen in the mid lane, and they kind of double as being very effective into Wolfie's champion pool. Wolfie typically known for those control mages, those kind of the Orianas, the Syndras, the Twisted Fates, those kind of champions. And when you pick an Anivia against that, it's very difficult to play. Lucky Bao up in the top lane has been absolutely spamming Gwen, trying to get as many games as he can on that, trying to, get his mechanics up before this series potentially. So it's going to be interesting to see how Maryville adapts to this information from Coog Esports.
Yeah, and finally, I think with all the new jungle changes that we've been seeing in some of these new picks, like with Viego and Gwen enabled, and now seeing like some solo lane Lee Sins, which we did see from Lucky Bao last week. in the top lane. I don't think there's a better team more equipped than Coog Esports to just be like, hey, this champion's coming out. We're going to roll with it. Oh, yeah, it'll be fine. You got any APA fans in the chat? Could probably see an Aurelion Soul coming out from their mid lane Soxo as well, to just go off of Dylan's point right there.
Yeah, we did see that in the highlights, and I love the fact that we have talked a lot about throwing teams off of their comfort. And I mean, you mentioned it's a tough task for Maryville, but this team, the most successful program that we've ever seen in League of Legends collegiate in that space, not only being successful in the collegiate space, but also even the amateur space. Their 2020 roster took third in scouting grounds against all the amateur teams we had. They made a run at it in proving grounds, one of 2 rosters to compete with Winthrop as well in those qualifiers. And this team that they're fielding this year, Dylan, it doesn't have Niles and Iconic, but man, did they find some great replacements in Chippies and Odd Orange.
It's really crazy that you can send 2 players to LCS and still arguably have a side grade, right? I'm not going to go off and say that they're better than who they replaced, but Chippies is no slouch in the top lane. He dominated the amateur space. He's been playing very well within collegiate. And Odd Orange is somebody, he's a bit of a known quantity, but he's also been working on his own gameplay. You know, he's somebody that's put a lot of time into his craft. He plays a lot of solo queue, plays a lot of, scrims with the team, obviously. He's been active within their amateur tournaments and their collegiate run. These are players that have elevated this roster to new heights, and one thing that we've heard time and time again with this Maryville team is that they're a 10-man roster. Mm-hmm. They are a team that, sure, they play typically the same 5 players, but on the back end, they're doing all of these 1v1s, all of these practices, all of these lane matchups, everything. They share information with each other as if they're a 10-man team. And I think that's the key to Maryville's success. That's why they've been so successful, is because no other collegiate team has either thought to do this or had the resources to be able to do this. So it's going to be very exciting to see how Maryville can kind of take their revolutionary approach to collegiate League of Legends and apply it to this stage, because Coog Esports is a bit of a wild card. You don't really know what to expect from them, and Maryville kind of struggles in the past with unknown quantities. We saw them drop some games in the proving ground circuit to teams that threw them for a loop. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they've shored up some of their weaknesses from the past couple of months. I bet that they have, because they just have such a solid coaching staff serving as the foundation for this team.
Yeah, and I was just wanting to go off that point of the coaching staff. That is the reason I feel like they've been able to have this transcendent mainstay over collegiate League of Legends for Zoo, and the job that he does all the time, not only just for Maryville, but for the collegiate space as well, reaching out to others and trying to, empower others as well. And then also at the top, it always usually starts there with Clerky. I do think that if there was a unstoppable force versus an immovable object sort of thing, this would probably be it when it comes to the round of 16 that we have in the Sweet 16, because if there's a mastermind that you would want to try to solve the enigma that is Coog Esports, I wouldn't want to have anybody else but Zoo at the helm over there at Maryville.
Zoo is someone that takes prep very seriously and talks about it a lot. And I'm going to put you guys on the spot and see if you've done your prep, as we need to get some predictions out of the way before we dive into this match. I'm going to start off with OP. Who do you have winning and why?
Well, I got Maryville winning, but I got them winning 2-1. I do think Cougs have enough flair inside their champion picks, or throwing something of a little bit of a curveball, whether it's either in the draft phase or just finding a pick in some pivotal moment on a rotation to punish Maryville. But I still have Maryville coming out on top, 2-1 over Coog Esports, but it should be a really close series.
I'm going to have to do it.
All right.
I'm going to have to do it.
All right.
Coog Esports 2-1.
Ooh.
I'm going to do it. I think
okay.
It's time. We saw Bethany upset in the first series over on the other stream. We've seen some upsets happen this weekend in the round of 16. It's time. Okay. I think that Maryville has been struggling a little bit. I think Coog, if they prepped properly, they can maybe take a couple games. I'm excited to see. Well,
we're going to have to see if our special guest analyst is aligned with you, as we do have one other that's going to be giving their thoughts on this match as well. We can get that one up. It's a reappearance. We got to run it back. Shio, what do you think? Oh, Oh, okay. Well, looks like Shio is going for Maryville. Have to stay loyal there, and they are the heavy favorites coming in. You mentioned Maryville possibly dropping this round. Ladies and gentlemen, they've never missed a round of 8 since their program has been founded and announced, and they are expecting to land there once again. So let's see if Maryville can continue the round of 8 streak, or if Coog Esports have other plans for them today, as Mazel and Rebel Fox will be taking you through all the action. Guys, take it away.
Thank you once again, Cubby, and we are back to the caster desk. Second series of the day. Coog Esports versus the Titans that are Maryville University.
This is an exciting one because we get to see yet again perhaps the tournament favorite come out against a team that has a stylistic difference that could put them into a very kind of positive space that we're going to have here for the side of Coog Esports playing into our #1 team. You also possibly could not have better casters because we've covered Maryville basically top to bottom, and getting to pick apart this team is our favorite thing to do as much as possible. So thankfully you get two of the people who know this team backwards, forwards, left, sideways, whatever direction you want.
Whatever axis you want to go on.
I don't care, yeah.
The thing I want to set out here, but I know draft screen's coming up. We've got all this important information. We've got to see what Coog can bring, if they're going to give any spiciness to us in this early draft, in this first game draft at least, because there are some draft bucks to accrue, and especially against Maryville that can put them on the back burner, or the back foot rather. We'll see though, as Maryville are on that blue side for game #1, Coog on the red side. We already see Coog's Anivia banned away by Maryville. Definitely don't want to deal with that one. And getting the Morgana as well banned away, just trying to make sure that the top tier junglers are not going to be available. Rumble is the must ban for Coog on that red side.
I feel like Thresh also has to be taken off the board. Nocturne's another really big one because that's at least a double flex between Auto Orange, but more importantly, Chippies. So that means if Lucky Bao wants to play anything in terms of melee fighter or anything like that, it's got to be taken off the board. Chippies has played it a ridiculous amount this season. He was nearly the pioneer of it here within collegiate and amateur space, and taking that one off the board is massive to consider. Volibear also taken off the board. Actually, a number of these junglers. You know, Diana is something that Auto Orange has played. It also leaves up like Tristana. Thresh is still available again for the side of Coog Esports if they want to pull something like that. And then from there, you start to dip into everything else. But that first pick is something I'm paying a lot of attention to, as it sets a tone here for the side of Maryville.
It does set a serious tone. And one thing that we've seen in the past, you know, having covered Maryville a lot, is if you can find a way to put them behind, if they aren't in the control, they're not in the driver's seat of the game, that is where you see the fumbles. That is where you see Maryville kind of be a little bit lackluster in their performances, and this is where Coog can take advantage of that. And it starts in the draft. It starts with these pieces that you can get that early tempo, that early advantage. We see Udyr picked up there for Auto Orange on Maryville.
And you see multiple junglers taken off, where like Nocturne's gone, Diana's gone, Rumble's gone, Morgana's gone, Volibear's gone. So that pool is pinched to the limit, as it's going to come back to Thresh on one side. I think Tristana could be there too as well for Noodles. I don't think that would be a ridiculous pick in the slightest, as a very offensive duo. You know, Varus also fits into that slot as well. But interesting that Auto Orange decides for the Udyr, given everything else that's off the board. I think it is a little bit difficult to see where you've landed. This is something, though. This is a Coog Esports special. They played a bunch of Skarner over their split. It's something that Teeny is very good at playing, and I'm excited to see what they can do in this composition. Also, okay.
That's it. I was going to make a long point about the Skarner. We're going to talk about the early agency we were talking about. You know, level 6 is going to be really nice. You're going to be able to fight. Senna Tom Kench get locked in for Maryville. Shady and Evan RL going to be pulling those ones out. A lot of late game potentials there for them.
Absolutely. I mean, you see Coog Esports, they lock in the Aphelios alongside the Thresh. Nothing shocking there, because it is a lot of aggression, a lot of team fight focus. Coog loves to be in these bloodbath situations. I think they're also really good at front-to-back fighting, a lot better than a lot of other teams, rather than these flanks or anything crazy. They just love to play front-back, that standard team fight. It's crazy because like they love fighting all over the place, but their team fighting is about as standard as you can find it when it comes to like how they want to set up. They want to go front line to back line as often as possible. But more importantly, touching back on like this Maryville bot lane, where Senna was one of the most popular picks for Evan RL. He was amazing at the pick over the course of the split. The Tom Kench fits with it pretty well, as it's a lot of denial for like things like the Impale that are going to come out from the Skarner and anything else that can come through. But I don't love it specifically because Shady is known as like this roaming champion. We saw Clyde in the previous series. Perhaps the only person in the entire tournament better at it is Shady on this, and now he's probably going to be farming and in the bottom lane kind of just pinned there. So there's at least something that Maryville is taking off the board for themselves, giving themselves instead the preference for the likes of Evan RL.
And it's time for the others to shine. You know, Shady just giving his time in the limelight away. And we'll see if that Tom Kench really can make any plays, as Shady is known as one of those very strong playmakers for Maryville, really shot caller as well. We'll see Lee Sin and Aurelia banned away by Maryville. And on the other side, Coog take away some solo laners. They get the GP off the board, as well as Wolfie's Orianna, very mainstay pick for him.
Can I see it?
And I would love to, and it's locked in. First game, we said Coog need to throw something at the wall, make it stick. And here it is, the Sejuani.
I love for a couple of reasons. Number one is, like, if you draft something blind here like Scion, then it's like there's got to be a response. You have to think of somebody on the side. And Chippies will punish that with a number of things. Scion can punish by a number of different ways. And specifically, also the Sejuani is huge because it becomes this massive tank. It has really good setup for ganking and things for the Skarner, but also really hard to kill with the composition already designed by Maryville. You look across the board, you got Senna, who's going to have like the Kraken Slayer, will do some damage, not perfect at taking down tanks. Now Syndra added into that fold, another member of this team that's kind of difficult to try to play into that Sejuani with. Olaf would be a really interesting counter pick into the top lane Sejuani that's been brought out a handful of times by Chippies. He's been amazing at it. But again, killing those tanks is something you have to pay a lot of attention to because right now Maryville, they don't do it very quickly.
Yeah, they last second swapped over to the Gnar. Going to be tried and true there for Chippies. I was hoping for some spice in the Darius. Don't think it would have been a great pick, but hey, it worked out. They get the Gnar anyways. A little bit of team fight potential, a little bit of strong presence for Chippies in top lane. We know that's a very usual point for Maryville. They like to play through Chippies in the top lane as well. And we get the final pick here for Coog. They get the counter pick, the pick of their dreams, and it is the LeBlanc that comes through. So very, very strong picks coming on for Coog. They have a couple damage sources, but as well, their team synergy, their team fight is going to be insane.
Our desk talked about it, and you talked about Draftbox, man. But Coog probably just collected right there. Because like I said, no way to kill Sejuani. A lot of really great targets to assassinate with the likes of the LeBlanc. A decent landing phase into the Syndra as well. Kind of difficult. Going to put a lot of pressure onto Wolfie, who is one of the better Syndra players. It's a reason why we cover this school so much. Is Wolfie's actually one of the very few people who I allow to play Syndra respectively. Because he's very
allowed
good
to, okay,
He's
everyone.
been proven.
That's
He's come up in clutch situations. That's perfectly fine. Yes, but they've got themselves a lot of different tools to work with. They've got great front line, great front to back on the side of Coog. They've got good pick potential with both the Skarner and the LeBlanc. They've got such a well-rounded composition to work with, and this is going to be like Maryville is always standard. They're always practiced. They're always about macro and things like that. That's going to get put to the test here today against this Coog Esports because right now, chinks in the armor are really low to try to find on this composition. The only thing I can think is lack of mobility, I suppose, for like the Sejuani on the top side. Being able to snowball Chippies on the Gnar could be a big thing. We've seen that make a massive impact, like Damwon Kia at MSI, where it was pretty much just the Gnar that won them that game against C9. But either way, like there's a lot to love about this Coog composition.
I think the more interesting part to me, like the picks are all well and dandy, but when you're going up against Maryville, it's the macro, it's the decisions, the rotations around the map. That's where they find a lot of their success, and especially around the objective control. They know where to be at the right times. They know the rotation timers. They know how to get Odd Orange where he needs to be, and Coog have very strong pieces. We already talked about some of the new picks, the things that we're getting for this game one, all the draft bucks that they've accrued, but you've got to execute these pieces. You've got to make sure the LeBlanc is getting that early advantage. You've got to make sure Aphelios is set up for the late game. You're getting that synergy between the top trio, the Sejuani helping out the Skarner, things like that against Maryville, because that is where we've seen the success against this team. When you get those objectives, when you get that pace control, like we talked earlier in the draft, and that is what I'm looking at Coog. I just have so much pressure on them right now for myself, just because of the execution required for this composition.
It feels like Maryville, they need to capture very early pressure just so that they can keep their wards in the river so that they can actually contest. Because if you start to let these lapses of vision come through, all of a sudden, Syndra is in a rough place. Even with the Tom Kench, it's super hard to deny the burst that comes out of LeBlanc. The Impale is still going to be accessible. With the Tom Kench, you ideally don't want to build a bunch of QSS or something like that, or have cleanse on a bunch of different members, which I don't even know that it works in that particular sense. But either way, you don't want to have to expend so much resource to make sure that these two people can't pick you. The only other thing to consider like in that regard is like if the pick potential is not there from Coog because for some reason they can't get these lapses of vision, Coog also struggles really heavily with consistent damage, and that's there in spades here from the side of Maryville in comparison, because like they don't have the best front line to soak a bunch of Aphelios damage. What they do have is double health bar, a good amount of healing, a lot of range to work with, and damage to boot, with all of that in the front to back type team fight. So if Coog's tanks aren't up to snuff, aren't able to kind of soak a bunch of damage in the front to back, Aphelios has to do a ridiculous ridiculous amount of work to try to clutch out in these fights. Thresh has got to do some work as well to make sure that Aphelios is positioning properly, and it becomes pretty difficult to play front to back the way that Coog has played previous fights prior if these pick tools are not online.
Yeah, and on one side for Maryville, you're waiting. You're trying to make sure that you can take some of the tempo control, but you're waiting on that Senna to hit the item spikes. You're waiting on Syndra just to be able to blow people up with, you know, the press one button champion. But the other side of it is, like, Soxo was an important piece to Coog when we were coming into this, when we talked about, you know, some of the strengths of his team. This was a focus for us. We do think that he's one of the stronger pieces to this. Has the LeBlanc this time around. Game number 1. This is the time to show up and show that this LeBlanc needs to be feared. And the other thing for me is it's kind of a double-sided coin here, because you also need to make sure this LeBlanc is ahead for the rest of your composition. Like, if your LeBlanc isn't ahead, then you lose so many tools available to you in that early game. Yes, you still have the Aphelios, Thresh, and bot lane. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're not able to use that pressure from the mid lane, that's where I feel like things can start to fall apart for Coog.
Soxo's got some pressure on him right now. We've seen Wolfie soak a bunch of pressure and still come out ahead of time, which is another thing to consider, which is that even if your LeBlanc is super ahead, that doesn't necessarily mean you're in a good place. I think I agree with your point to the extent that we don't necessarily need LeBlanc to have like 5 kills or 10 kills or something coming out of the early game or something obscene. More so, it's the effect of the LeBlanc needs to be felt on the map. You can't go silent for the first 15 minutes of the game and put no pressure on, have no chains, have no roams under your belt. If Soxo's just stuck there in the laning phase against the Syndra and you're finding like a trade or something, maybe like a kill goes in your fashion, that's not what you want out of your LeBlanc. This isn't a team fighting champion that's designed to play in these very standard ways. Instead, it's supposed to be there to generate a bunch of additional pressure and kind of pull away from the standard team fight narrative, which is exactly what puts pressure onto Maryville. We saw that in the round of 32, and any of the mistakes that they made were often around those kinds of off the beaten path type of existences that they had within fighting and such. And that's what Soxo's job is. I think it's a very strange role for Soxo to be in as well, because typically you see the Anivia, you see the Talia, you see the Victor, you see some of the control mages very akin to what something like Wolfie would be playing. And in this one, they feel comfortable putting Soxo on something like LeBlanc to get an early advantage, to press that advantage across the map as well, and to try to generate some of the early momentum for their team.
Yeah, and I think other areas that we need to focus on is I want to get to the jungle matchup a little bit later, because I think that's going to mean a lot to that early pathing always as well in this meta. But the top lane, Sejuani versus Gnar, baby. Like, we got a little bit of fun up there. I wonder how that's going to work out. You know, Chippy's typically trying to take some resources in the early game to propel that into some bot lane team fight TP plays or things like that, just pressure from the top lane. So I do wonder if we see Orange try to get up there against the Sejuani. Because the Udyr, though, it's not going to be that easy.
I likened this specifically, I chose my words very carefully when it came to the comparison of Don Juan Kia versus C9, for specifically the reason that if you looked at that composition also didn't have the most damage. It was a lot of utility and things behind it, as is Maryville's composition, where they have like the Syndra, who doesn't do the most ridiculous damage unless you're Doxa and you're up 40 kills at the beginning of the game, or you know, they don't have the Jim, but they have the Senna, who isn't like, does fantastic damage, don't get me wrong, but definitely isn't always necessarily that perfect damage backbone. So the reliance a little bit on Chippies to do some more of that damage, to be a bit more of the damage threat in these fights, is absolutely going to be there. It's not just this Gnar's going to jump in full tank, throw everybody into the wall, and then just soak damage the rest of the fight. Some of that damage has got to come through, and it's a player that they've been able to rely on to do exactly that. How many times have we seen an Aatrox flank that's led to 3 members dying on the back line while everybody else is fighting in some skirmish at the front line, and suddenly the fight's lost for the other team? It happens all the time. Same thing's got to happen with this Gnar. Sejuani has little kill pressure against Mega Gnar, and Mini Gnar, it's always there. Everybody's got kill pressure. Skarner also hasn't had the most damage either. If you're able to get away with the bounce, with a flash, things like that in the early game, and no pressure is put on Gnar, it's a relatively easy laning phase, with a couple of really good health trades with that distortion coming in on top of Wolfie's Syndra, as well as top lane. It seems as though Lucky Bao in a pretty good position right now with the Sejuani's wave control, which means you have support here. That was a really nice electrocute trade from Wolfie to make sure you have some additional pressure. The corrupting potion is getting popped because, again, you need somebody to help out the Udyr in that river. You don't want to get caught out in just like the Spire against the likes of the Skarner. Love that Chippy's in that same position as well, putting some damage into Lucky Bao.
It's going to be a lot of damage on Lucky Bao. Lucky Bao was able to get a decent health trade back while he was in Mini Gnar form, but Mega Gnar going to buff up that health bar, give him those extra tools, and Lucky Bao on the back end of that trade and the top side will be a CS lead as well for Chippies, who's looking to push in that wave up there. Besides that, still just farming for this first entire clear for both of the junglers, not getting those early ganks off, at least those level 3s, level 4s, but looking for a little bit later in the process, especially when those scuttles are spawning.
They are. Double cam take here. It's going to be a lot slower. Teeny, I believe the smite should be up for the potential contest of that Scuttle Crab that's coming through. Soxo, notice that Wolfie's completely out of mana, so only has the auto attacks to trade with right there, and that means that Wolfie has to pull off. But Auto Orange finishes his camp so quickly, there's going to be no contest for this Crab, because I think Teeny needed to skip the Krugs in order to actually make it here on time. And even worse, Maryville's bot lane has so much pressure in this bottom side, they can walk up river and immediately contest for bottom side Scuttle, as well as this Spire being taken. And you see Shady's just gobbling that one up, throwing it into the middle. TP came out into the mid lane as well from Wolfie. So they've got everyone in the area. Nobody's there to contest, and no chance that Scuttle Crab's going to get taken.
Yeah, unfortunately for Teeny, just pathing down to that bot side, was looking for it, does not get it, was starting to back, also stopped that back. So eventually going to need to get that reset off at some point, but both junglers deciding to stay on the map. Double Scuttle secured, as you said, for Maryville, feeling really good in the tempo control, at least a little bit. I know it's early, there's nothing too crazy, but if they can continue this, they're putting themselves in a good position.
I am liking so far how Soxo's been able to trade into the wave the way that the LeBlanc is capable of doing so with that distortion and putting a bunch of pressure into the Syndra. It's requiring that Wolfie burns a bunch of the AP, or a bunch of the mana, my apologies, to make sure that that's going to come through and make sure that the wave's in a position where Soxo can't just walk away with the Ignite and things of that sort. Bottom lane, a lot of trading. There's the Graviton
comes in. Yeah, going to be gobbled up by Shady, save a little bit of that health. Wolfie in some trouble mid. Flash forward, Soxo gets first blood, and that's exactly what you like to see from Coog Esports. Now in bot lane, they're going to continue it. Gravitum into the Infernum, taking a lot of damage as Evan RL. Not going to go down, though. Will they be able to get the trade back? Not a lot of damage coming out from Evan RL just yet on this Senna, and you can see the difference early on in the laning phase between these two ADCs.
Yes, this is supposed to be Evan RL just collecting stacks. It's not super easy when Gravitum is available, and you've seen that a couple times from Noodles, but that's not going to come through. Look at the trading from Soxo. This is into the wave distortion. He does get shoved back, but coming back. Oh, actually took a full electrocute combo, but Syndra just doesn't have the damage. That Q missing, and look at all of the damage that comes through from Soxo's LeBlanc. The Ignite as well, just enough to tick down. Even better, Teeny was here to cover to make sure there was no response play from the likes of the Udyr. So it's just flashes for flashes, Ignite for the kill coming out on top of the mid laner of Maryville, who, again, he's a very consistent mid laner. He's usually a stone wall, but on occasion can be known to be kind of pressured in the mid lane, give up a couple of kills here and there. Usually doesn't cost his team too much, as they're able to accomplish quite a bit on the map in exchange for that. But so far, nothing has really come through from Maryville, and it's a very passive kind of bottom lane as well, where they can't pull too many resources. It's got to be some top lane focus or some top lane resources thrown if they want to respond to Soxo's pressure thus far.
No Gravitum to get the root there for Noodles on the bot side. A lot of health trading going through the side of Maryville. A little bit worse for wear in this situation, though, as a lot of pokes is coming down. They're trying to go for the dive. Mininar comes out as soon as Chippies goes for it. And they back off of it. There's a huge wave, though, and you can tell that they really want it. But Soxo has already started to make the roam. Going to get some of the honey fruit there in the river, but not going to really make his way all the way up there. Well, Destinus landed on the Shady. A lot of damage taken down, but the willingness for Soxo to move out of lane so quickly, to have that pressure mid lane, that's what we were looking for when we were coming into the draft early on for Coog, and they've done so beautifully in the early game so far. Yes, they're going to also get a dragon for themselves, so that's a continuation of that early game pressure that Coog is putting on.
I can appreciate that Maryville went for the topside pressure. I think it's something you need to come back to and revisit. The problem with that one was the Mininar expired very quickly. They had the level 6 to level 5 advantage for Chippies, which is humongous. But the problem is when Lucky Bao was able to get back under tower with like 40 or so % health and kill off a handful of minions, level 6 was hit. Yes, they did see Soxo, but more importantly, you can't really make that dive happen even though you've got Gnar, who's sitting on like 30, 40% health and a full health Udyr, because that Glacial Prison will come out under tower the second you try to throw an ability in. And all of a sudden, this Sejuani gets percentage health damage on that passive, the W and the E and things of that sort, and you're in some really dire straits. So they pull off of that one, thankfully. Didn't get much out of Lucky Bao, which is really solid. Being able to soak that pressure is huge for Lucky Bao, not allowing any additional pressure from Chippies. And then, of course, obviously the Dragon take on the opposite side of the map to match this pressure. What is this?
I love it. What has playing competitive League of Legends taught you that you have applied elsewhere? Take everything seriously. Underestimating or lack of effort will not get you anywhere. That is a tried and true prospect there from Coog Esports Lucky Bow, as Coog Esports taking the fight on Evan RL. Evan RL is just left out in the dust and gets taken down.
Yeah, second time in a row. They're trying to punish the Scuttle Crab take from Teeny, but right there, they had everybody. Again, look at that mid wave. It's stacked for Soxo. They're able to move their bot lane up, and they're able to make the plays happen onto this bot lane here from Maryville, who's usually such a rock. As they move in as a duo, there's 4 members readily available for the side of Coog Esports, who then get Soxo yet another kill, furthering this LeBlanc's advantage in this game, allowing this, LeBlanc to attack. Now Chippy's in the top lane into Lucky Bow. Lots of damage came out.
They've got everybody coming up here, though, and Chippy's has been baited a little bit. Glacial Prison barely goes wide. They should still, I was going to say, Dark Passage is still there. The Impale is available as well. Teeny looking for it. Gets the slow. There's the Impale.
Very nice.
Dead damage done is going to be there, as Teeny takes a lot of damage from that tower shot.
Handful of tower shots that came out. I think it was 2 at the end of that one, but still getting the kill onto Chippy, shutting that one out. Super close to getting that kill up against the likes of that Sejuani, but super tanky in the earlier stages of the game. That grass proc also just enough health retrieved in order to continue in that one. Thankfully, because they had burnt the bottom lane play, and then they had immediately responded to top lane with that rotation, they have nobody left now to compete against the Rift Herald and Maryville. Of course, they understand what that looks like, and they're able to use their tempo to snag that one away. This is the solo play where Chippy's, again, that grass proc right there might have been the saving graces. There was another one. The ultimate does not tag. Chippy's has to get away, not super mobile on this one, and pulls in Teeny and Soxo. I was actually curious if Soxo would have been able to secure this kill alone, because the chain's there. Q comes out. That's the damage. Okay, it all procced at once, and it wasn't quite enough, so Teeny was able to snag that one. I kind of wanted the LeBlanc to get a third kill. Oh, actually, Soxo in the mid lane.
Completely turning the table around here. Soxo's the one that's running away with no health, and Wolfie full health, almost half mana with the blue buff, feeling really confident in the mid lane off the back of that.
And it is. Well played right there, as Wolfie throwing some extra damage. Soxo had come back likely from that top lane dive and not actually taken quite a back yet, so just going to be some minions that are going to come back into the favor of Teeny. Well played right there. Again, Wolfie, even if you're down 2 kills, 3 kills, he'll still be making plays and still be contributing to the efforts of the team. So right there, making sure that you have to respect the damage of the Syndra. Soxo forced back, burn the Flash as well, which is at least another resource is taken out of the pockets of the LeBlanc. And that blue buff makes it a lot easier for Wolfie to spam these abilities, make sure that LeBlanc has to stay honest and focus on some of the wave before everything else comes through. Notice Coog Esports have been the ones that have struck pretty much everywhere on the map, but are projected champions or 2019 champions still are not giving even an inch. Everything has to be taken from the side of Coog Esports.
Yeah, they have to fight for every inch, as we'll see everyone moving up here towards the top lane. Soxo as well on the roam. I was wondering, yeah, Glacial Prison is available. They just go all the way in on the Auto Orange. There's the Dawning Shadow across the top. TP now coming in from Wolfie.
Wow. Good
turnaround from Coog to know that they needed to get out of that fight and do so beautifully.
What they do. They've got numbers there, and the ultimate comes out from Evan RL. It almost looked like Maryville was also playing for just like the break of the fight. They weren't willing to chase super far, as the resources burnt on both sides, not able to find kills on either one. Instead, it's just going to be pressure put on the top tower, and the Rift Herald that had been taken on that play earlier when a couple of kills came through is now going to break down top tower for the combination of Chippies and for the Udyr, which is what we wanted to see. Is Chippies getting more of this gold, the Gnar getting more involved in this game, maybe generating some of the team fights that we're looking for, putting pressure onto this Sejuani, which has done a great job at denying a bunch of the proactive plays. Now there's the response to the opposite side where Shady and Evan are soaking a Teeny gank.
Yeah, I'm very worried about how this bot lane's going. Aphelios is still so strong, right? You can say what you will about the champion, but when you're getting items and you're getting gold on this champion, it gets so strong in those team fights. And you're already up a decent amount of CS. And yes, you're looking for the long con for Evan RL and the Senna, but if you're giving this advantage, this free lane to this Aphelios on Noodles and just Coog Esports in general, it's going to feel really, really good when you get to those later points. As Soxo's actually taking a heavy trade in mid lane. Contrim Non going to come in with the Dark Passage. Wanted to try and get Wolfie. Wolfie's too clean on the getaway, but Dragon was taken. So 2 early objectives for Coog, and right now everything's on track for Coog Esports.
And the obscene amount of damage from the Cinder Ultimate, not quite enough to push Soxo out of lane, is, of course, the cover came through from Contrim Non, and the Dragon also came through from the side of Coog Esports. This is the punishment. Now TP in the bottom lane.
They have the Glacial Prison not yet available for Lucky Bow, just trying to get the engage. Misses it all, and they get away for the side of Maryville.
Interesting. Again, if Evan RL and Shady want to try to punish on the opposite side of the map, they have to advance so far, and they don't do a ton of consistent damage, sending out the best tower taker of every single ADC in the game. And so right there, they shoved up the wave. They're trying to punish the Aphelios a little bit for going for that dragon, and also for Contra and Nom coming. And the attempted cross-map play from Lucky Bao, I actually really liked. Unfortunately, Senna was so far back they couldn't go onto it, burn the flash of Shady instead, and they'll take that because it's another defensive tool removed from the Tahm Kench, which is already difficult to have to deal with. In the meantime, Chippies was pushing up top lane, shoved it into top tower, so Lucky Bao catches that one, as this kind of response across the map has now prompted Maryville to walk into this bottom quadrant, or this blue quadrant, my apologies, and look for some warding to try to cover maybe a mid lane push that's coming out right now.
And one thing I have to say is that Maryville have been very efficient in their map movements. It's something we always expect from this squad, right? Ooh. Glacial Prison actually is going to miss. Wolfie flashes out from the chain, though. The slow from the area of the Glacial Prison was going to make that connect. So Wolfie with the heads-up play there, gets away. Yeah. But as I said, Maryville very calculated in where they're positioning. They have gotten advantages when they can. That Rift Herald taken to the top tower, first tower for Chippies, like, that is the advantage that you're kind of looking for Maryville. And even though we've had good advances from Coog Esports, they've gotten these objectives, they've gotten these early kills, they've gotten the LeBlanc, the one that we talked about the whole draft, getting these kills, it still feels like Maryville are waiting to pounce.
We've seen this problem in collegiate, we've seen it in amateur, we've even seen it when they've faced off against academy teams. Maryville University has got one of the biggest buffs ever, and they are a team that you need to beat. You cannot sit here. They will not make these massive mistakes. They will not capitalize on opening, or they will not miss out capitalization on openings that exist in the course of the game. Maryville takes everything that you give them, and they won't over push for anything necessary. And that means Coog Esports, they can't say, oh, we got 2 kills on LeBlanc. Oh, we were able to pull a couple of dragons off the board. We can just go for the win condition later. They have to come up with a legitimate strategy to convert this and work at it proactively, because what's happened is they had a couple of game plans to start with, a couple of really solid kills to begin the game on LeBlanc. That's fantastic. What's your next move? And now they've been stuttering a little bit. Why? Because they can't convert it into anything so far, which means Coog Esports, they're trying to figure out how they convert this into a win. And in that meantime, Maryville's accrued a 1.5, 2,000 gold lead, as well as that Rift Herald, like you said, now moving towards the top lane for another gold lead potentially. Aphelios is going to be joining them on the top side. Shady might have to abandon ship on this bottom lane to get there in time. Chippies is also making his way here, as nobody's in this river. Control's completely in favor of Maryville, but maybe we're going to get a pretty big interaction between both squads right here.
So I'm going to try to whip out the big brain here, the big brain play-by-play. I think that Noodles is the one they need to focus on now. I feel like if they can get this, already ahead, almost 50 farm in the lane, they can get the Aphelios to a little bit of kills here, use the LeBlanc's early lead to get the kills onto Noodles. That's where they succeed. That's where they find success, at least. They've got to try to wrestle away this Rift Herald. Yeah, Moonlight Vigil did come out, but is just going to dissuade Maryville from following it up. They do secure this objective. Got to get to mid lane, though. That's going to go down here. They're going to have to look at that tier 2 tower for the defense.
Like I said, Maryville, they had the shove on mid. This is why you have to have shove on mid whenever you have Dragon or Baron or something. When you toll your full team off, they actually weren't able to get the tower on this one yet. One auto attack's not going to come through. And that's got to be 1 health point. That's
they
want to
go so bad. Wolfie's like stepping up. Like, I got the auto attack.
Click the tower. Please click the tower really quick. I need to see what the health is. Never mind. You don't have time.
They're getting engaged here. It's getting a lot of damage down. That's a big Mega Gnar ulti for Chippies to follow it up, though. And Maryville are cleanly taking this fight, as it's going to be the tower going down now, finally. One kill going over. Noodles has gone down. The carry we were just talking about needs to get the resources. And as I said, Maryville just waiting to strike, waiting to pounce. And there they go.
Yeah, the illusion of safety underneath of that mid tower was never really a problem for Maryville, because again, that had to be paper at that point, if not like weaker than paper, somehow just standing there off the weight of its own existence somehow. And you're going to see a little bit of an attempt from Soxo, but Wolfie, again, he's just a stud, and a stone wall completely denies Soxo's engage. This massive Gnar ultimate is humongous, but the big thing is Noodles misses the flash over top of the wall that allows Chippies and Wolfie to focus him down. Soxo tries again. This tower is literally just a pittance at this point. But again, Wolfie, heads up play, catches Soxo out. That chain lands, he's very dead. It does not give that one over. More resources denied. And again, the side of Coog Esports, they snagged the Rift Herald thinking, okay, now we can use this. But then they lose a fight and they lose mid lane tower, as well as now pressure into bot river around this third dragon that they've been controlling so well.
And it's so just mind melting that you, as Coog are sitting here, man, we got early lead. We have Soxos playing good. Look at the score line. We've got 2 objectives. We've got 2 kills over them. We don't have a tower over them, but you're in a 3K deficit almost, which is insane to me because we've seen such good performance early on from Coog, but that is the strength of Maryville, to always be playing the game at hand. And as we say that, they're starting to form in front of this Dragon Pit. This would be sole point for Coog Esports, and Maryville do not want to give that one away. Taking the 1v1 over here, turning in more of a 3v1. Teeny almost goes down. Auto Orange stuck in the back of the pit, but has the rest. Oh no, the Moonlight Vigil misses. Yeah. So they won't get the reset. They won't get the Gravitum root there to get everybody. And all of a sudden, you've got 2 members backing for Coog, and this is a free dragon for Maryville.
Big respect, actually, I think, from Coog Esports. There's a lot of teams that have been played against that have made the mistake of contesting this dragon when they're down a good amount of gold to Maryville, and all of a sudden they're like, how did we lose this fight? We were winning early, and we had the dragon advantage, but instead, they just give this over. They say, okay, we're fine. We'll fight another day. Like you said, take some time, get Noodles into a decent place where all of a sudden that this Aphelios can start popping off over the course of the game, find some more pick potential. When you've got the combination of like a Sejuani ultimate and a Skarner ultimate and a LeBlanc, you can find picks, you can generate gold off tempo from where everybody else is on the game, and that's not a problem for the most part. I love that Coog makes that decision, and even better, Maryville, they muscle their way into the river, they snag away that dragon, and they start their own dragon stacking slow down the side of Coog. They're not going to be forced into a 5-on-5 or anything like that anytime soon. It's a competitive game, but man, Maryville is still looking really good in like typical Maryville fashion they do.
Yeah, I mean, they've got CS leads across the entire top side of the map. Wolfie has gotten a stable farm lead now over Soxo. Now we get the lane movements. We get kind of re-priority in the mid lane by Evan RL and Shady. They are needing to get some of this farm back up, because that is one thing that I feel like Coog is doing really well, is making sure that Noodles is getting a ton of this farm and is doing really well in the farming aspect of it. And that just leads later to Aphelios having things that we were talking about looking for. So both sides, you know, knowing where the priorities lie here as we get another player answer.
Didn't think I would meet such great people in my life. Met my girlfriend, really happy. My sport from 2 years ago got me a job at NASA. Lifelong friends. Man, this is the part of esports that you never really get to see. You get to see the heart melting stuff. I remember one of our players from the other day was 527 in the top lane. He was named after his girlfriend's birthday. Stuff like that's just it's adorable, and it's mind melting, and it's all of this stuff that really makes esports such a wonderful place to be, as everybody gets to connect in such amazing ways.
I don't care what happens here. I'm a Noodles stand all day long. Lucky Bao, still tanky, still alive. Oh God, but has to use the Glacial Prison to get out of there. Lucky Bao, he stepped one step back towards the tower, but that's going to be the flash stun. Still gets out with the flash from the Dawning Shadow. Lucky Bao, take a bow.
Incredible right there. Even better, that's a trade of flashes where like one of them is the Udyr, one of them is the Sejuani, and I gotta be honest, probably more valuable for the Udyr. So that means burning those in equivalent fashion as well as a couple of ultimates, huge. Not to mention, look at Coog Esports, not something we see commonly, but bottom lane tower being traded for mid lane tower, and that's all that's being traded. So it's just the resources. Can they snag this one? No. They gotta be able to get it. The Lanterns there. Okay, perfect. Coog Esports responds to the tempo that Maryville is at. Most of the time, teams, they don't find this avenue. They don't find this mid tower most of the time, and Coog is able to get this gold off the map. Even better, like you said, put it into the pockets of Noodles exactly where they need it to be.
The Noodles buff is too strong. Works in NASA, has a girlfriend that played med in the game. You know, it's too good. It's too good. Noodles really feeling confident right now on this Aphelios, though. You got to expect, and with you know, objectives in 2 minutes, you're going to have a little bit of downtime here for catch-ups, at least on the side of Coog Esports, to try and get some of this farm back. Still sitting at that 3K deficit. It's nothing crazy, but it's a good amount, right? And it's something that Maryville will use in the fights effectively, because it is going to be on the crucial members here. And I think that one thing we've seen be super influential in these fights is chippies on this Gnar. You can say Lucky Bao, you know, in the top lane is very influential as well. The Glacial Prisons, the catch-outs, those kinds of things, being that tank in the front line for Coog is huge. But the setup, the damage potential that Chippies is putting down, the playmaking potential with those Mega Gnar ultis is something you always have to be careful for on the side of Coog.
Make sure also to keep your eyes on positioning on the map for everybody, and specifically keep your eyes on where is Skarner, where is Sejuani, where is LeBlanc. Notice that LeBlanc and Skarner are on the same side of the map, hovering around Chippies. This is a target that you could put down. There is a shutdown gold on that target as well. They both backed off, but again, keeping your eyes on those two are going to allow you to understand where Coog wants to strike on the map. If they don't make plays happen, they can still win this game, but we talked about it. Their 5-on-5 is more difficult to manage when Soxo can't find some of the engages into the backline, especially with how well Wolfie has been playing. Now finding himself in a really rough situation.
Yeah, going to be up against Lucky Bao. Lucky Bao's getting revenge for the chase down earlier. Misses the scat of the week, but gets away with a beautiful flash. And now the response coming in from Maryville with the Abyssal Voyage from Shady, but they do not follow it up. Teeny and Contrimnon were right there just in case. The two carries in the mid lane. Look at Maryville, though. They want to make a move on this. They know there's a lot of people by. And Soxo just goes in the fight, leaving Noodles all by himself. Poor Noodles. As the TP gets come through, and Bao is just going to go down as well. Maryville are picking apart Coog out of nowhere, seemingly.
Not sure what that was. I feel like it was Coog Esports trying to capture mid-pressure right there, and like you said, Soxo just backed off. And I think, honestly, if you stay for that, you probably don't end up keeping your life. Even if you trade 1 for 1, you give up 1 additional life here from the side of Coog, and also still lose the dragon. So all you're doing is withholding the gold and withholding the life for Soxo to make sure that they can't like trade it for Baron or anything, which isn't that fast anyway. But more importantly, again, Coog, they try to make an aggressive play bot lane with Lucky Bao because this is a solo kill essentially onto Wolfie, who's able to live this which is so immaculate. Good. It really is. It's an immaculate flash to come through. You're going to see over top of the wall right here. The E did end up missing.
Right before, yeah.
Yeah, right before. And even better, Odd Orange was there. That ultimate was a little questionable, but again, Tahm Kench ultimate's pretty short.
They just run right back to where they
just run right back to the mid lane, yeah. And Odd Orange is super fast, so like, what are you going to do? You don't have anything necessary for Noodles to get him out of that situation. Lucky Bao started the TP, can't cancel that one, and unfortunately has no Glacial Prison either, so that means nothing comes through. Contrimnon thankfully pulls out Teeny, and it's not the biggest loss. Again, it's second Infernal Drake, which is tough, and a couple more kills, but it's not only more than 1,000 gold that's now shifted back into the favor of MU. Coog can still strike in this game, but again, they're floundering right now to find these plays to use this gold that they had at the beginning of the game. They haven't found any picks. They haven't found any use of the LeBlanc. They haven't used the Impale very well whatsoever. They haven't found a Glacial Prison that's led to anything so far. They're just not getting anything on the map that they need to be. Yes.
All right. This is the question I've been waiting for my entire life. Question is to Odd Orange. Well, we're getting a little bit of action here. How did you come up with your summoner name? Where does it come from? Club Penguin, fruit name I made when I was 11 after I learned about alliterations in English class 6th grade. I love it.
That's incredible.
Club Penguin, baby.
Hey, you ever see, like, oh, actually, there's a fight that's about to go on, so I'm not
No.
It's
just Club Penguin diff over
That's
here.
fair. That's fair. Hey, well, like, I've heard of, like, other people that, like, they're like, oh, where did your name come from? It's like, I got it from a random name generator. Like, there's no personality behind that. Odd Orange literally made his when he played Club Penguin. How many people can say that? How many people grew up with Club Penguin? Probably all of us. So, like, big appreciation that he's willing to admit to that one, which is amazing to think about, like, these names that have these stories. And again, learning all of these facts, and I love the fact that they're getting put on screen of production's awesome. Look at the damage on that Cinder ultimate. It nearly didn't have to help our Soxo. That's
literally Wolfie just pressing the R key as soon as he saw Soxo. Like, hey, here you go. Here's a present. Hope you like it.
This could be an angle for Teeny if he really wants to try to find something right here. You got to go over the wall, though. I'm waiting. He's got flash. Like, that would be an opportunity.
He has the entrance here, but the biggest question is, like, the rest of the team does not feel at least super confident to go for that play. This is the moment you make that play, though. Yes, Chippies has TP, but you've got this 4v5 started here, and with the pick-out tools that you have, you can immediately take somebody off the fight. But instead, they play their games, they wait back and forth, they're trying to decide if they want to go in. The whole time, they lose a tier 2 tower to bot lane by Chippies.
Indecision, man. It's something that gets punished way too heavily, and now, all of a sudden, there's a counterplay coming through because somebody backed.
Yeah, you had the back from Soxo, immediately sniffed out by Maryville. They move forward. Contrimnon is going to die. No Dark Passage to get you out of that one, and Odd Orange gets the kill.
This is what I mean when I say you have to beat Maryville, because Coog, they have this small window where a fight can come through. And Chippies has TP, sure. And he's in Meganar, sure. That's 4 seconds you have to pick. You've got an Impale, you've got a Glacial Prison, you've got a whole whole ass LeBlanc, like, just to be 100% honest, and nothing comes through from Coog. They don't find anything there. They lose their bottom tower, and they lose someone in transition. Maryville will take everything you give them, so you either have to play super defensive, or you just have to take every opportunity as it comes. And Coog, like, ever since the 5-10 minute mark has passed, they've done nothing aggressive with this team comp.
And I will say, you know, watching the Maryville little documentary they put out, seeing Chippy's getting to the gym, getting that flex on, he's seriously flexing now because he's got a GA third item on the Gnar. Not going to be killable in the side lanes at this point, and really looking for that longevity to the Gnar's life. Lucky Bao goes over the wall here to maybe try to find Wolfie under tower, but just finds Odd Orange to take a couple trades down. And he brings the rest of Coog Esports towards this top side of the map.
They will. They are at least holding their quadrants properly to make sure that there's no Baron attempt to come through from the side of Maryville. But again, Maryville's not upset having to take this game to 40 minutes to go to Elder Drake. They don't care. This is as dominant as it looks from them because, like, you look at the scoreboard and you're like, they're up 1 kill, they're even in Dragons, they're up 5,000 gold. That's not just, like, completely obscene, right? But, like, anybody who's watched this game past the 5-minute mark, this has 100% been all MU. There's been nothing. This is just a slow, crippling stranglehold being put across the map constantly by this entire MU squad. And Coog has not been able to find any semblance of an attack whatsoever. And every time they do, it's just denied by somebody. There's like a Syndra stun to come through. There's a Tom Kench W to be eaten. And, like, at some point, something's going to have to shake for the side of Coog Esports to make sure that they can at least try for something. But at this point, they're down 5,000 gold.
Oh, Evan's dead! My God, Evan RL didn't have a chance.
We
He got the CC chains coming in. Odd Orange flashes away. Chippies wasn't near the fight, and this is exactly what we were looking for. Power Unleash comes out to kill Soxo, but Wolfie is going to go down to the rest of them. Double kill for Teeny, and that's going to be Dragon Soul Point secured by Coog, unless Maryville can do something to stop it, which is not likely.
It took a leap of faith, literally from the LeBlanc, to be quite honest, to jump into that team and find the assassination against Evan RL.
In the middle of everybody.
In the middle of everybody, and in the face of a Tom Kench that could have eaten Shady or eaten Evan, and it would have had to worry about it. Heal is available, Flash is available, Exhaust is available, and they find the kill they needed to take back pressure in the game. They only got about 1,000 gold back, and they're looking for the Baron right now. And in the middle of that, also Soxo went down because Wolfie was able to find a good trade. But that is the positive play you need. That's the kind of mechanics you're looking for. Chippies is going to have to do some heroics with Odd Orange, although the reinforcements are on the way.
Odd Orange is already going to get taken out. No, he doesn't, because the Megnar ulti saves the life of the day. And that's a quick triple kill for Maryville. Now they turn on to Baron.
Too quick. Not expecting, unfortunately, the ultimate to come out from the Tom Kench to reinforce this entire play around the Baron buff. And now, you know, all of a sudden, I was trying to praise Coog. I was trying to give them some credit here to say, okay, finally, they've done what we needed them to do by taking that dragon. But then they immediately overstep their bounds and they play way past where they should be on the map and go into the Baron buff, as that's certainly going to get locked in. I want to see this from Soxo because this is gorgeous. Completely blind. Watch Evan on the backline. He's just going to disappear.
A little bit
QQE, gorgeous right there. That's just a perfect chain. No one's expecting it. All of a sudden, into the backline, they're CC'd to prevent Tom Kench from doing anything. Odd Orange gets shoved out the other side of the fight. Chippies never gets to enter, and they find some more abilities onto Wolfie as well, which is humongous as the trade for Soxo comes down. But right here, they can just close right here. They take this dragon. Now they've won a fight. Now they've gotten themselves a lot of defensive tools out of the side of Maryville, and they can pull for next dragon, or at least buy them for 5-4 minutes. But now they've given themselves up completely in this game by giving Baron and another fight win over to Maryville, who now take complete control of everything on this map.
I will say one point that stood out to me right there was the CC layering, right? The impale past the Glacial Prison, so the Glacial Prison goes on to the reinforcements there on the shade. Like, that's just awesome. But as you said,
overstep.
You're still down 8,000 gold now because of that Baron buff. You've given Maryville a ton of pressure here. Wolfie gonna get eaten up right there, but not gonna go down. Soxo actually takes more damage than Wolfie does. Now Soxo gets his Mimic popped, and Soxo's just gonna go down eventually to Odd Orange, who chases him out. After everything, Odd Orange on a killing spree. They've taken full advantage of mid lane, though, as Coog are moving in for the kills. Wolfie's going to go down first. No, he gets gobbled up. Noodles is the important piece. Look at the AoE coming in. They've got tons of damage on this Aphelios, but can he carry the game? Noodles getting very low, but they are as well. You've got tons coming through for Coog, but that's going to be a nice route. And it is going to be 3v2 right now in favor of Maryville, who have the Baron buff and have the range to push down this inhib tower.
And you can see right there, Coog almost was able to break things open. Soxo tries that same pick maneuver onto the Cinder. That's not going to work. You got Magic Resist, you got the Banshee's Veil. You're going to pop those and absolutely nothing else. And Shady this time was ready with the trigger on that W to come through. Ends up getting killed. But Noodles almost carries that fight. But it's just the one damage dealer. There's no one else to help him. So he's got to auto through like 5 members of this Maryville team. And he nearly pulled it out at the end there. Evan Arell, I think, finally realized that the Aphelios was going to be able to carry the fight and just had to back off at the very end after the Guardian Angel got popped by Chippies, and they're able to pull off of that fight. They're content with their 9,000 gold lead. They do have to be careful around this next dragon. That is Coog's way back into this game to find this Infernal Soul. But Maryville, again, they're finding some of these fights. They're finding the right situations. They're advancing their gold lead slowly, and they're trying to take control of this map little bit by little bit until they can get these big objectives to get them the game win. Oh, and Soxo?
Yeah, Soxo is just going to be taken out here eventually. Slow comes in from the lick.
Oh!
Shady, ooh, breaking ankles. Soxo
he's not
trying to make the play, but yeah, there's no way. The double jump, the leapfrog over gives Chippies that kill, and that's going to be a big pick out right before the dragon. It is going to be about 15-20 seconds that Soxo has to run down to that pit. Maybe Coog just decided to give it up, but to go 6 dragons total in this against Maryville is not going to be the way you want to. They're already pushing this inhib tower, and the bot side can give them all the priority they could ever ask for down there. Maybe they're even looking for the fight as the Impale comes out, but the Gobble is the perfect response. And that's 2 inhibs down for the side of Coog Esports.
That it is. Able to shove in, and especially the 2 inhibitors they took are spectacular for setting up the dragons that are going to be coming in from Maryville here in the next few minutes, in the next 30 seconds specifically for the Infernal Dragon. That will be soul point for them and taking away the soul specifically from Coog Esports. But also, there will be places to strike on the map in bottom and in mid lane, of course, when they're trying to set up Baron on the opposite side of the map, which is really spectacular, as well as being able to set those up by taking those inhibitors a second time for what will be the soul or the soul fight, forcing Coog out of their base or into an uncomfortable situation to find something. Soxo, he's warded out a number of different places, gets the Banshee's Veil of Wolfie, but that's all he gets.
Power Unleashed as well. Ooh, the Destinance lands on the Chippies. Chippies has Meganar just about.
He's got
what Aphelios can do here. That's going to be huge. Soxo's going to go down to the side by Wolfie. Wolfie with a beautiful flank on it, though, and the rest of the members of Coog have no chance. Noodles is trying his darndest, but he has no health bar left. Maryville, the Kings of the North, are going to show their dominance here. 13,000 almost in the lead to finish out this game. They were waiting for the pounce. They were waiting for their target to be at a willing spot, and they jump on it immediately. They know when to handle the situation. They know when to handle the map. They do so beautifully. Game number 1, all Maryville's way.
They waited way too long to press the go button on the side of Coog Esports, and that means that Maryville slowly takes that game away little by little. Even in that last fight, you saw some possibility of Aphelios maybe carrying. He had so many chakra, but got forced so far back in that fight. There's no interaction between Aphelios and the rest of the team. He can't do, even if he gets the perfect opportunity to play front to back, I don't know that the damage is there, unfortunately, from the side of Coog. They struck in the right moment. They found one good play in that later stages, but unfortunately, it was not even close to enough to bring them back from everything that had been avalanched on them from the side of Maryville from that very, very good early game that they had, and Maryville take game 1 in convincing fashion.
I can't believe we made it to that point. Like, I am so surprised, and I'm so sad for Noodles. Your
new favorite.
I'm the biggest fan, my favorite player now. But just the fact that they looked so promising. But it's the same tale we've told so many times when you're looking to face up against Maryville. As you said, attack, attack, attack. That's got to be the name of the game. They waited. They were buying time. Little did they know all that time was going in Maryville's pocket, and they are able to use it so beautifully. You just see the big brain coming out from Maryville in general around their macro movements, around their objective movements. They know when to strike and when to strike hard.
But it's there, right? Like, we saw glimpses of it.
So
little moments there from Coog Esports where we had, like the LeBlanc isn't a perfect pick, but I love the aggression that comes out for picking that one here in the first game. And I love that they struck in the early game when they have the possibility of getting that gold advantage to begin with. It's just they got to improve some of the tempo in that mid game. They got to keep that advantage rolling as fast as possible. They can't dwell on their victories. They need to push it into more. But again, they're right there. They're right there to contest this number 1 squad coming out of Maryville. Maryville Maryville, I would love to see them strike right back. Don't go to something safe like Syndra out of the mid lane and Gnar and all that stuff. No. Take some aggression, man. Let Shady bust out the pike. Let everybody bust out their favorite champions, and let's see some fireworks in this game number 2, because I think Maryville needs it to keep their confidence high, because otherwise, if Coog adapts fast enough, we could be going to game 3.
Hey, I'm always hoping for a game 3. We'll see, though. Analyst Desk is going to break down that first game and the series as a whole so far. We'll see you on the other side.
I know Rebel Fox wants some fireworks. We saw some from Coog, but Maryville, they were definitely bent but not broken as they hold strong, get the game 1 W, and the favorites that we have, the number 1 seed from the north, move to a game 1 win. Guys, I'm going to get straight into the replays, sending it into, I guess, the first thing of note that we have with that mid-lane tower take from Maryville, where they stuck around, and this is where we really saw a lot of those neutralizing factors come in from their team composition, Dylan.
Yeah, it felt like Maryville's team composition just suffocated the side of Coog Esports. There was really nothing that they could do at a certain point. At this point in the game, you could argue that LeBlanc was able to do something, but this Chippy's ultimate is just absolutely beautiful. Ults 4 people, including the clone. We'll call that a 5, man. And the failed flash from Noodles just means that there's just no surviving it for Coog Esports. And this is right before Dragon. They don't get Dragon off the back of this. There's another team fight that breaks out, but Maryville's able to pick up Dragon cleanly. They really, you know, in the early game, it kind of reminiscent of Series 1, where they fell behind a little bit, the favorites in the series, but, I mean, their team composition, their map play, they were able to keep competitive in gold and in their map position, and as soon as their team composition came online, it was just lights out for Coog Esports.
I know that map play is something that we really talked about, because despite the kills going over on the scoreboard for Coog Esports, the gold always looked like it was in reach for Maryville, even if they did fall behind for a few instances. It was rock solid for them, and a lot of hidden gold as well with the fasting Senna, getting those souls, getting that hidden power that we don't see on the scoreboard that MNRL used to such success as we moved on. And speaking of that, okay, so Coog Esports, they got off to a couple nice plays in the early game. As items started to roll in, we really were expecting them to kind of roll over, but that wasn't what we saw, OP, as we dive into this next replay.
Yeah, for sure. So in this next replay, they have the LeBlanc that Rebel was talking about, or actually, this is the
this is the failed play coming through. So
yeah,
they were trying to make the plays. It wasn't enough, and things were just getting turned on them. As Maryville, I mean, this is a real good demonstration of their macro, right, OP?
Yeah, for real. So the play almost works out, having to blow flash. They come to answer this, but then what happens off of the back of this from Maryville? They're like, okay, play's over, play's dead. They move into mid lane, catch out Noodles and Zoxo right here. And then, you know, people TPing a little bit late right there. Then they have the response TP right here to get the win right here that does net them the fight right here, and also going into the Dragon so they can start securing those neutral objectives for themselves as well.
Yeah, I guess I was just getting a little bit ahead of myself there as the next replay that we have. So the LeBlanc pick, right? This is something that, I mean, looking at that team comp, Dylan, you felt very strongly against, but it may give us a lot of insight on the game plan that Coog has to try and upset the favorites in Maryville.
Yeah, you know, Soxo definitely playing with a little bit of confidence. You're never locking in LeBlanc if you feel like you're the worst mid laner, or if you have like the worst mid jungle 2v2. So
yeah,
Soxo definitely, you know, feeling a little bit of hubris there, but I don't know. I mean, I can't get on board with it, because as we saw, Maryville is just so good. They're so smart. They buy 5 Merc Treads. How can LeBlanc function into 5 Merc Treads, into QSS on Tahm Kench, into just magic resist built on the Udyr and the Gnar and the Tahm Kench? It's just so bad. And then the Banshee's Veil on top of everything. Like, LeBlanc found one angle this entire game, and I believe it is this replay where she's able to get the one shot onto MNRL. But I'm going to go ahead and make the argument that that's not LeBlanc being good. That's just Maryville with a little bit of a lapse of judgment. No vision over that wall, no eat, no heal, no flash, no exhaust. Nothing came through to try and counteract the LeBlanc, and that was a great angle from Soxo. That's the kind of thing you need to do to make LeBlanc work, but I don't know if that's LeBlanc being good more than it is just Maryville, you know, skipping a couple steps there.
Yeah, I do want to say, I still want to give Soxo some credit. He found the angle right here, but, you know, Houston the Coog Esports right here really feeling themselves a little bit too much. You know, the flash forward from Soxo to where he dies from the Unleashed Power into this probably unwarranted Baron startup that ends up going south for the guys from the same conference. And it just, Kings of the North showing why they're as hard a task as we were making them up to be in the beginning, that you can find picks like that with Soxo, but if you make a mistake, they're going to press it and press it hard.
Yeah, and the downside of looking for a Baron like that, you can feel the pressure that Coog Esports is under, because you have LeBlanc, you have, you know, Skarner, you have Sejuani, you have these champions that are just getting outscaled as the game goes on, and you need to make a play like that. And sure, that's not the cleanest Baron call, but I don't really knock them for trying it. You could have set it up a little bit better. You could have maybe played the ensuing team fight a little bit better. But when your composition is something that just gets continuously outscaled as the game gets later and later, you need to look for those kind of plays. Maybe if they went for it just right away and they didn't, you know, skip any steps or any time, maybe they could have had it in time. I don't know. It's hard, but I understand the thought process there.
Yeah, and I mean, Coog Esports, they definitely gave Maryville a fight. It's not like they just rolled over, and that is what we want to see out of these underdogs. As this next replay, we do see Maryville getting the best of them in the final team fight. And OP, I kind of want to throw it over to you to talk about. I know that while we were watching the game on the desk, we talked a lot about variability and how much Maryville's comp reduces that variability. You kind of want to expand on that one for us?
Yeah, for sure. So we were talking about, like, if you want to, you know, throw wrenches over at Maryville and try to make them, you know, match your craziness, that's what Coos can do. But, you know, seeing the Tom Kent Senna come out, like, if there's any way of reducing variance, name it Senna Tom Kent. And they put in some people onto their comfort picks on both sides, obviously, and it was just really, really smart, I think, just overall drafting to where there were really hard positions that Cougs did put themselves in, whether it was through macro or in that draft phase. And then obviously the sale over at Foot Locker with the Merc Treads did not really help them out towards what they were trying to achieve. So gotta just find a little bit different avenues to where you know, Coog Esports doesn't put all their bags into the Merc Tread basket.
Yeah, I like Maryville. You know, they got some nice jerseys, some nice swag. I didn't realize they had a foot deal with Riot there for the Merc Treads as they went across the board. And hey, I have to say, I mean, very warranted against that team composition. A lot of hard CC coming out, and even with the QSS on Tom Kench, I feel like they needed that extra tenacity to really push them over the line. And hey, Maryville showing that tenacity as well in that game one, as it wasn't the cleanest that we saw, but overall still a very strong performance. There were moments that Coog tested them, but like I said, bent but not broken. And OP, I want to kind of throw it on you as a head coach. What do you think the final steps that Coog could take to possibly break Maryville and take this series to a game 3 might be in game 2?
I think that this was an avenue that they looked at. If I'm going back to these guys between, I was like, all right, we tried this. We want to do it this way. Probably can make some adjustments in draft, but then we're going to look at, we can take what we saw in our individual advantages and try to translate that to other lanes. I want to see Soxo on a comfort pick that he feel like he can probably either smash again onto Wolfie, or take that jungle 2v2 instead of playing for that, move it into one of these side lanes so that you can have more pressure upon the map. Also, don't play a pick comp and don't lock in stuff that requires, you know, like point and click CC or single target, stuff like that when sending Tom Kench is up, or just ban it away. So there's small avenues that I think they can look at otherwise, but that's probably where I would go.
Yeah, I also want to give a quick shout out to Noodles as well, who we thought he played out of this world, and congrats on the girlfriend NASA and all that success that I wish I had personally going on in my life, as he also is playing some Killing League of Legends in this series. But for game 2, let's see if the Maryville University Saints can stay pure, prove their top dogs going up against Coog Esports, as we've got Rebel Fox and Mazel coming right back at you.